Hello everyone, welcome to the book station. I am Sanjana and today I'm filming a video on the books that I read in April, May and June of this year. In the previous video I spoke about the books that I read in Jan, Feb and March, and after that I didn't get a lot of reading done, but I did read 4 books which are pretty good, so I thought why not talk about it in this video. So the first book that I read is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I love dystopian novels. I fell in love with the genre once I read 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale. Though it's very dark and depressing in so many aspects, I love that it brings to the forefront some of the problematic things that are hidden in plain sight in the world that we live in. And we always think probably dystopian novels deal with things that haven't really happened in life, but on the contrary, they are inspired by a lot of events which did happen in reality. So one such book is Fahrenheit 451, in which Ray Bradbury deals with the idea of self-expression and free thought being a crime. So in this book, possessing books is considered a crime, and our protagonist, that is the protagonist of this book, Guy Montag, is a fireman, and his noble duty is not to put out fires but to set things on fire, and those things are books. And on one such duty, his noble duty of setting books on fire, he comes across a situation which fires, ironically, all his doubts. So the woman whose house they are supposed to burn down for possessing books refuses to leave the house and burns herself down along with the books, and this triggers Montag's doubts of what these books possess that people are ready to give up their lives. And from there, he goes on to his house and retrieves all the hidden books and starts reading them, which turns his world upside down, and that triggers a set of events that happens in his life. I would stop there because this is a very short novel and I do not want to reveal much. But this is a very well written novel in which Ray Bradbury actually presents to us how mass media can poison the mind and rid people of free thought. For example, Montag's wife is always on the radio, or she is looking at the walls, which are life-sized TVs. And on another hand, people are deprived of free thought and made to feel happy. For example, Montag's chief, that is his fireman chief, speaks these lines which reflect a lot about what's happening in this book. He says, "Cram them full of non-combustible data, choke them so damned full of facts, they feel stuffed, but absolutely brilliant with information. Then they'll feel they're thinking, they'll get a sense of motion without moving, and then they'll be happy because facts of that sort don't change." So those lines probably sum up the entirety of this book, and I would suggest it to anyone who loves reading dystopian novels. Though I love this book, I didn't give it 5 stars on Goodreads because it's a very short novel, and towards the end of it, you're left craving for more information, and I personally wished that the author explored more themes and more aspects in his book. Otherwise, this is good to go. Then the next book that I read was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, where he introduces us to a new world called the world state, where people are divided based on their intelligence. And this intelligence isn't biologically gained, but engineered in hatcheries. So the world state has made great technological advancements, and hence it manufactures human beings in an industry called hatcheries. So through biological and psychological conditioning at a very young stage, the world state is filled with people who are divided as alphas, betas, gammas, deltas and epsilons. And in this world, Huxley introduces us to a world that is devoid of uniqueness. So what happens when everyone thinks alike? Everyone is driven by one goal, that is to gain happiness. So to do so, people of this world state take a pill called Soma, which sends them into a kind of trance or a mood of happiness, ridding them of all the ill feelings, that is anxiety or sadness or even doubt of any sort. So This story starts off introducing us to these hatcheries and the world state, but then we are introduced to the protagonist called Bernard Marx, who is the head of the psychological conditioning center. But what happens when this person, who is responsible for maintaining the state of the world, starts questioning the ways of the authorities? He starts questioning the taking of Soma, of why people are all the same, because of his own inferiority complex, and this leads him to visit the savage world. The savage world is the other side of the coin, or the opposite of the world state, where people are born biologically, they have no technological advancements. In other worlds, they live like pretty much like we do, and even worse ways. So Bernard Marx visits this savage land on a medical expedition, and then he brings back one of the savages to the world state, and this completely puts the world state out of balance, which triggers a lot of reactions and triggers the most fascinating aspects about this book. I loved reading Brave New World because Aldous Huxley, through the themes of people lacking uniqueness, shows us how authorities make use of this lack of thought, a lack of uniqueness among people, and they misuse this basic aspect of humans, the aim for gaining happiness and pleasure in life, and use it as a weapon to suppress the thoughts and freedom of all the people. So I would suggest anyone, even if you do not like reading, to read Brave New World, because I'm sure you definitely enjoy it. So the next two books that I read were self-help books, and the first was The Art of the Good Life by Rolf Dobelli. And this book lets you gain a clear perspective on every aspect of life, whether it's education, relationships, finance, mental health, physical health, all of that. And each chapter in this book is divided into 6 pages and not more than that. That makes it very short and concise. The best part about this book is the author does not only give you advice and his perspective on different aspects of life, but throughout he makes us realize what good life actually is. And some of the best lessons I can say that I learned from this book is, one, on focusing on building 3 aspects of our life, that is our focus, time, and money, valuing it and building it. And the second would probably be how, if we get rid of the option of giving us choices to do work, we would probably be more productive on an everyday basis. Third, dealing with expectations. All of us have expectations in life, with family, with friends, in our workplace, everywhere. So he talks about dealing with these expectations to live a better and more meaningful life. And honestly, I would suggest this to anyone who is starting off with reading self-help books, because it lets you gain a clear perspective of what to expect from other books and also from life altogether. And I will definitely go back to this book now and then, because like I said, the chapters are so concise, and if I have to gain clear perspective of something, this would be my handbook. The next self-help book that I read is a very famous one called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Unlike The Art of the Good Life, this book focuses completely on the financial aspects of life. And if I had to sum up Rich Dad Poor Dad in one sentence, it would be how to make money work for you rather than you working for money alone. In this book, Robert Kiyosaki talks about 2 kinds of dads. That is his real life dads. One is his own biological dad, whom he terms the poor dad, and the father of his closest friend, whom he terms as rich dad. And the life experiences of both these people in Robert's life inspires his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And through the relationship that they had with money and the job and the kind of job that they did, he learns a lot of lessons which he shares in this book. Some of the most helpful aspects, or if I had to sum up this book in 4 points, it would be that this book talks about, like I said already, how to make money work for you rather than working for money alone, which is what Robert Kiyosaki claims most middle class people do. The second is to focus on building skills rather than getting a degree alone, building skills that would help you have a healthy relationship with the money that you earn. Third, he speaks about understanding the difference between assets and liabilities and investing in both in a very careful manner. And four, he talks about how financial literacy is very important in each and every person's life, irrespective of the kind of job that they do, irrespective of the kind of background that they come from. And those are the main points that I can remember from this book. But this book in its entirety is for someone who has to change, who wants to change his or her perspective on money and build a better financial goal in life. Though money isn't everything, I like this book and I would suggest it to anyone because it's very important to have a good understanding of where your money is going, where it comes from, and what all you can do with it if you want to live a healthy life. This book doesn't encourage everyone to become billionaires, but it really educates a person on how important it is for to have financial literacy. So those were the 4 books that I read in the past 3 months, after which I have read a few more books about which I shall talk in the next video. Until then, I hope you do read a book and I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.